So Bishop Charles Ellis has finally broken the silence, issued a statement no less, in response to allegations made by a woman who claims she's been his side chick since 2002. Can you even wrap your head around that timeline? And what's more, there's a photo floating around with Bishop Ellis, the alleged mistress, and another woman who has now stepped out of the shadows to share some rather interesting details. Oh, it's about to get messy, real messy. But before we peel back the layers of drama, just do me one favor. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. Okay, deep breath. Let's dive right in. So 4 days ago, it all exploded on TikTok. A video surfaced, blasting the internet with accusations against Bishop Charles Ellis. The woman behind it says she was involved in an affair with him, and she didn't just tell the story. No, she came armed with receipts, pictures, videos, live stream Q&A sessions. She went full throttle. As the internet caught fire and Christians started grappling with disbelief, a letter appeared from Bishop Ellis himself, a formal statement. And I quote, "I, Bishop Charles H. Ellis III, Senior Pastor, Greater Grace Temple, am aware of social media posts shared by a former member of my congregation with whom I had an inappropriate relationship over 15 years ago. At that time, these indiscretions were addressed with my bishop in a redemptive process, which included counseling. These posts include accusations, some of which are deeply troubling and untrue. Given the nature of several false claims being made, I have asked my legal counsel, Attorney Gerald Evelyn, to carefully review all matters, in particular, an apparent joint bank account with my name on it. I have retained communications counsel Mario Morrow of Mario Morrow and Associates, LLC, to assist in addressing the situation appropriately. I ask for continued prayers for myself, my family, as well as this individual and her family. My deepest hope is that all parties involved can find peace in the healing." Boom. That's a confirmation, right there in ink. Inappropriate relationship over 15 years ago. That's not speculation. That's acknowledgement. He's owning up to something. And he goes further, says these indiscretions were addressed at the time with his bishop through a redemptive process, counseling, healing, whatever that looked like back then. So clearly this wasn't just swept under the rug. It had church-level intervention. But hang on, that's not all he says. He claims some of the allegations swirling now are troubling and flat-out untrue. He's bringing in legal muscle. Attorney Gerald Evelyn is reviewing everything, especially, he says, a supposed joint bank account that allegedly has his name on it. A joint account? Now that's where things get even murkier. He's also hired a communications expert, Mario Morrow from Mario Morrow and Associates, to help him navigate this public storm. And he's asking, sincerely it seems, for prayers, for himself, for his family, for the woman, and for hers. Says he hopes everyone involved finds peace through healing. So what does that statement really tell us? For starters, yes, something did happen. The inappropriate relationship line confirms there was indeed an affair. Whether emotional, physical, spiritual, doesn't matter. He owns it. The counseling suggests it was serious enough to warrant intervention. But the timeline? That's a bit foggy. Was it a one-time lapse of 15 years ago? Or was it stretched out longer? Not quite clear. What is clear? This isn't just gossip anymore. The bishop himself has stepped in, and that makes this very real. Now, while he disputes some claims, especially the bank account situation, he doesn't deny the affair itself. So she's not making that up. That part's grounded in fact. Still, she's not off the hook either. Enter Marceau Osborne, former friend of Mel, the alleged mistress. And oh boy, is Marceau fuming. Why? Because Mel dragged her into this by sharing a picture that included Marceau, tying her into the scandal without consent. You can imagine the frustration. So now Marceau's got something to say, and she's not holding back.
Hello again. This is the Bishop Ellis and Melanie, aka Mel story. And I'm responding to, like I said, the DM that she came in my little DM and tried to lie and said that he seduced her. Again, like I said, I never seen this man, and I was there. I know I can see that I never seen this man approach her. Like I said, Melanie has always been on shady things and shady stuff. She was writing bad checks when I ran up on her, when I met her through Milan, her son's other side of the family, hit the dad's side of the family. She was writing bad checks. She always wanted to be something more than what she was. Like I said, it was always an issue of her being in a man's face. And like I said, she pursued him. She always talked about being the first lady. And I used to be like, Melanie, that's not right. You're wrong. You're not supposed to do that. Because she knew. She knew what she was doing. This man, I never seen this man approach her in the beginning. This is all in the beginning, you guys. This is in the beginning of when this first transpired. I don't know what happened on the other end, the back end of the story, but this is the beginning of the story, how she used to run up in his face, how he always tried to her, because she ran the story that, whoa, it's me, I don't have anybody else, I don't have a family and all that. She was very flirty. She was always, like I said, she was always in some man face, especially if she felt that she can gain something from it or get something out of it. She was really in their face. And like I said, Mel, you know, and I know that I came up with the idea of the prayer pillows, the embroidered prayer pillows, if the church can remember that. I remember we went in his office to fetch him the idea. You lied and said he gave me rent money for you, but it was mighty funny. He ended up, all money that he ever gave was to you. He gave you the money. We pitched him the idea. He gave you the money, and we went together to buy the embroidery machines, which never got done. That's why I walked away from it, because all we did was smoke weed. You never was really real on getting these pillows done. And yes, he gave me money for the idea that we pitched to him, you and me rather. But as far as him giving me money for rent for you, that's a lie. I advise you to get some help. You are desperately in need of counseling. And no matter what you say, I know, and the people that I know that you pursued this man and hunted this man down. Clout, Melanie, oh my God, this is clout that you're doing. You want clout off of Bishop Ellis' name. That's why you're doing this. That's why you're coming out saying all these negative things and putting all this out about what he did and all that stuff. That's why you're doing it, because you're chasing clout, because you feel like he's not giving up anything to you anymore, so you got to get some more money out of it.
According to her, Mel always wanted to be the first lady of the church. That's a bold statement. Marceau says Mel actively threw herself at Bishop Ellis, did what she could to initiate a relationship, even when the bishop hadn't shown any intention of reciprocating, at least in the beginning. So let's break that down. Mel wasn't just swept away in a romance. If Marceau's telling the truth, Mel was the instigator. She pursued, she pushed, she made moves. She didn't wait for something to happen. She engineered it. Now, how much of that is fact versus frustration? Well, that's yet to be seen. But if Marceau's perspective holds, then this story is more complicated than an affair. It's ambition, manipulation, and fallout. And all of it is playing out in front of an audience that's hungry for truth. To now Marceau, whew, she's not playing. Her response is a full-on call-out, no fluff, no filter. She's dragging Melanie straight into the light and exposing what she says is the truth. According to Marceau, Mel's been shady from day one, and this whole narrative of Bishop Ellis seducing her? Pure fiction, she says. That part of the story? Fabricated, manufactured, carefully scripted by Melanie to make herself look like the victim. But Marceau's not stopping there. Oh no, she's coming with receipts of her own. She alleges that before Melanie even linked up with the bishop, she was out here writing bad checks. Bad checks. Now that's a serious claim. If true, it points to a pattern, not a slip-up. A history of shady behavior, not an isolated mistake. And then there's the ambition angle. Marceau paints a picture of Melanie as someone who was never satisfied with who she was, always reaching for more, always wanting attention, especially from men, especially from Bishop Ellis. And Marceau insists it wasn't the bishop pursuing Melanie, it was the other way around. She says Mel was throwing herself at him, trying to catch his eye, always talking about wanting to be First Lady of the church. That right there, that shows intent, desire, calculated effort. This version of events clashes hard with Melanie's narrative. It flips the script. If Marceau's telling it straight, then Melanie wasn't some naive woman swept away. She was a strategist with a target. And let's be real, this story smells like it's drenched in money. All over the comments, people are saying it. This whole situation, it's rooted in finances. No cap. Think about it. It looks like the bishop was funding something, supporting her, maybe even financially compensating her for, well, whatever that arrangement was. But now, the cash flows stopped. The gravy trains hit a dead end. And what happens when that money disappears? Boom. Here comes the expose. Here comes the viral video, the tell-all, the public spectacle. Feels like Mel had a plan all along, and when the money dried up, she triggered the final act. Honestly, it's one of those cautionary tales, especially for pastors, married pastors. You've got to be extra careful when dealing with women who aren't your wives, because situations like this, they don't just happen. They evolve. They build quietly over time, and then one day, they explode. And you know what's wild? In the comments of my last video, Nathaniel Brown dropped a story that echoed this whole situation. It's one of those examples that hits close to home for some folks, adds weight to the warning, adds a layer of truth to why this whole thing is so dangerous and so familiar. Now let me read what Nathaniel said. The bottom line is both parties were wrong. Bishop Ellis knew he was married, and the side chick knew he was married. I can speak on this because I have a personal experience that relates to this scenario. I was a married pastor, and the chick that started flirting with me knew that I was a married man, and at first I resisted her advances. But that didn't stop her persistence. There's an old saying that if you think too long about something, you will think wrong, and lo and behold, I fell into the temptation. All the while I was doing it, I knew I was wrong, and attempted to break it off several times. But lust had a grip on my heart, and like a fool, I yielded. Lust blinded me so much that I became careless and irresponsible, and the female got pregnant. There was a mutual acquaintance that tried to warn me about the chick, and how she bragged about what she was going to do, and how she was going to take me from my wife. By that time, I was blinded by lust, and felt like my marriage was over. I knew if and when my wife found out, it would be a wrap. To make a long story short, I confessed to my wife, and she was devastated like I knew she would be, and I just knew it was over. But to my surprise, my wife said she wanted to work it out and work through it. During the same time, I felt the need to step away from the pulpit. Prior to this, the building we were leasing for the ministry was sold, and we didn't have a place to have Sunday services. So I took this as a sign from the Lord to go to counseling and work on me and my family. To make a long story short, I stepped away from the pulpit and gave up the church. There are other preachers and pastors that felt like I shouldn't have stepped away from the pulpit or the church, but I felt like I needed to work on myself. Many other pastors have found themselves in similar situations and have kept on preaching right through. However, the guilt and the weight of this sin would not allow me to do that. And secondly, I didn't want to get the church entangled in the mess I allowed myself to be in. Yes, in hindsight, I would have done some things differently. Many people are going to have their opinions on what should happen, etc. Hopefully and prayerfully, Bishop Ellis will just take ownership of his wrongs and sincerely repent, because a lot of people will be hurt by this, and I can only imagine. Prayers go out to him and his family. You know, sometimes we forget that pastors are people too. Flesh and blood, not immune to temptation, not shielded from making mistakes. We hold them to impossibly high standards, expecting perfection. But the truth is, the real measure of character isn't in avoiding failure. It's in how one faces it when it happens. It's about accountability, plain and simple. And Bishop Ellis, well, he's got a long road ahead. Rebuilding trust, repairing the damage, it won't be easy. His reputation has taken a hit, and more importantly, there are hearts wounded in the fallout. That kind of healing doesn't come overnight. Still, this isn't just about him. Everyone involved has to own their part. It's not enough to point fingers or hide behind silence. If there's to be redemption here, real, meaningful redemption, it has to come from a place of honesty and responsibility. I hope they find it. All of them. Because when leadership stumbles, the ripples reach further than we imagine. And we owe it to each other to create space for truth, for growth, and hopefully, for grace.